All right, what's up, guys? Sorry about that. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties with Jordan, so I'm going to be running the show solo right now. We were going to, or I'm still going to talk about, have a little bit of betting in there. Unfortunately, with the NFL being over with, it's as not as exciting in the betting world. I mean, I know like there's daily games going on with the NHL and the NBA and even college basketball right now, but most of our bread and butter is the NFL. So we're going to talk about some futures in the NFL. The only things that you could really bet on right now, as far as the futures though, are the conference winners, division winners, and the Super Bowl winners. So if you got, so you definitely have some bets to put in now. And then obviously with free agency and the draft coming up, odds are going to change. So if you like somebody right now, get them in there. If you want to wait, somebody like Denver who could get Aaron Rodgers, or Pittsburgh who could go out and get Aaron Rodgers or something like that, their odds could definitely change for the better. So if you, or for the worse, as far as like what a payout is. So like Denver right now is plus 2,200. Um, I personally have not been doing that well in the NHL. I've done a couple NBA bets too, but this past weekend it was the All-Star game, so there wasn't much to bet on then. And then NCAA, I've hit a couple medium-sized parlays, but not for like big money or anything like that. So just uh, for the most part, I mean, there really is no strategy that I have for NCAA. What I've been doing there, just kind of been putting together parlays of mid-range favorites. So like anything 6.5 or more, but not going over really like 11.5 or so, because I don't want the odds to, or the odds aren't going to fluctuate that much. So like I'll put together like a 10, 11 leg parlay of um, like teams that are 6.5, 7.5, 8.5 favorites. And unfortunately, I mean, if one of the favorites miss, then your parlay is over with. But I've been doing a little bit better than not with stuff like that. Like, yeah, college basketball is real iffy. Unfortunately, today I actually lost on one. Ohio was a 7.5 favorite, and they ended up losing by 8. But so that parlay was over with. But something like that for the NCAA, I've just been doing that, especially like on Saturdays where they're having 80 games. I'll throw a few different parlays together and just hope that one hits. So no strategy really into that. Just kind of going with the favorites there. As far as the NBA, I've been kind of betting less games, but going more with player props, especially with the rebound props. I haven't hit one yet, unfortunately, but they're coming. Definitely some more, like starting to get some more consistency with the rebounds. Like Carl Anthony Towns is one that's been pretty consistent. Giddy from Oklahoma City, he's been pretty consistent. Luca has been getting quite a few rebounds, and his number usually isn't in the double digits. So it's definitely something that throw him on a slip. So I've been, unfortunately, the one that I had today also failed, but I mean, you're not going to win them all. I mean, I guess I can kind of just lower my slips down and go with like 4 or 5 legs instead of the whole slate, but trying to trying to win big, you know. NHL has not been doing good to me at all. Like I got one going on right now where I do have the Blues, the Avalanche, the Knights, the Ducks, and I believe and the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes won, so it is still alive. The Avalanche are losing right now, currently as we speak, 3-1. But again, just kind of went with the favorites there. I'm not putting a lot of money in the NHL because it is so unpredictable that it's just it's hard to bet. Like we were talking about past couple times that we've been out, we talked about Montreal just not being a good team, and then the next time that they played, I think was against Buffalo, and I figure that okay, if there's a game that Montreal is going to win or at least cover the spread, it's going to be Buffalo. And they go into that game, and unfortunately, Buffalo is the one that ends up covering the spread. They won by 2. And so the very next game, you're like, okay, I'm going to take Buffalo in this one, and Buffalo ends up losing 4-0 to them. So it just there's so many ups and downs in NHL that it's hard just throwing away your money in that sport. As far as like the weekend goes, I mean, couple games that I like. I do like the Panthers over the Oilers tomorrow. In the NHL, Panthers over the Oilers. You got a good game with the Senators and Canadians. I'd probably lean towards taking the goal and the half that you're going to be getting from probably going to be getting it from Montreal. They have been on a streak right now. I know we joked about them having 8 wins for the longest time. They're up to 12 now, so they're on a 4-game winning streak. They brought it up a little bit, but so taking the goal and a half from them, I think it is going to be a close game. They're pretty evenly matched between the Canadians and Senators. So just give me the goal and a half, and hopefully it all works out there. Um, Avalanche over the Golden Knights. Avalanche have been kind of skidding lately, but I think they definitely turned it around against the Golden Knights. That's going to be a really good game. You got Eichel kind of getting himself worked into the Golden Knights offense. It is in Las Vegas too, so I wouldn't touch the spread in that one, but definitely taking the Avalanche. I think they are the better team in that one. So that's a couple games for Saturday. As far as Sunday goes, you got the Hurricanes back again against the Oilers. I think the Oilers are going to lose both games this weekend. Um, Hurricanes are just one of the better teams in the league, just overall. They just shut out. Who did they play tonight? They just shut out the Blue Jackets today 4-0, and they're just a strong team from top to bottom. Jets over the Coyotes on Sunday too. Coyotes are opposite end. They're one of the bad teams. They're one of the worst teams in the league. And then I like the Sharks over the Kraken. Kraken traveling on the road, not a far travel, going from Seattle down to San Jose, a few hours. But I do like the San Jose Sharks in that one. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of NBA bets. Like I said, I talked about doing rebounds, and player props like that. Jordan, like I said, he's having some troubles getting on, so I don't have any NBA bets. I just kind of do those on the fly. I don't put really a lot of thought into those. Probably why I'm not winning much of them, but it is what it is. As far as like some future bets for the NFL, like I said, you could choose the overall winner, the Super Bowl winner. You could choose the conference winners and the division winners. Um, I know there are some apps out there that you can actually bet on the NFL draft, or at least like who the first pick's going to be, or what position the first pick is going to be. So that isn't on DraftKings though. I don't, at least right now, it isn't. It might be closer to the draft. Um, but as far as like the odds go right now, the best odds for the Super Bowl winners right now is KC and Buffalo. They really haven't changed. I mean, nothing has changed as far as like personnel or anything like that since the Super Bowl. So KC and Buffalo, as soon as like the Super Bowl was over, those odds came out. They were like plus 750. Like I said, they haven't changed. Those are the two favorites right now. For the Rams, the repeat, it's plus 1200. It's not a bad idea. I know right before Jordan cut out, he was talking about some players and some coaches that have hinted at retirement, or it's been rumored for retirement. Aaron Donald. I mean, I think he comes back. I don't think he retires yet. He is in his 30s. I think he's right at 30 or so. He's been in the league about 8 years. Been a dominant force in the league, but I think that he'll be back. The biggest one besides Donald, if he were to retire, is actually their left tackle, Andrew Whitworth. I mean, the offense kind of just goes through him, with just protecting Stafford's blind side, not opening up holes, but like run blocking for guys like Akers and Henderson. They do have. We're not talking about the NFC West today as far as our biggest needs, because that was the biggest. That was our what we're going to do on the show today, was talking about the biggest needs. Today we're talking about both the East divisions, AFC East and NFC East. But so when we get into the NFC West, we'll talk more about the Rams. But guys like Odell Beckham Jr. Is a free agent. Like I said, Whitworth, he's 40 years old. He's probably going to retire. I know Jordan was right before he got cut out. He was talking about the rumors of Sean McVay retiring. I already mentioned Aaron Donald. So at plus 1200, I think they do bring a lot of that team back. Like I said, I don't have their pending free agents in front of me. We're not talking about them today, but as far as like the betting odds go, plus 1200. Uh, the Packers are plus 1,400. They're the next one there. Well, there's a group of them that are at plus 1,400, but they're interesting to bring up because they have been making some cap space. Now, Aaron Rodgers is still under contract. I don't know if you guys saw the news that he wants to be the highest paid, get close to 50 million or at 50 million. I don't know if that's going to happen, but they are trying to make some moves to try to get him to stay. They do need to re-sign Devontae Adams if they want that to happen. And then there's other moves that they got to make. They got to make that offense appeasable to Aaron Rodgers to make him want to stay. So at 1,400, that's you're kind of taking the risk that Rodgers is going to be there, that they're going to put the offense around, and that they can make it back. They were bounced in the what divisional round this year due to some special teams play against San Francisco. Couldn't score enough points, so we'll see. I mean, if Rodgers comes back, well, yeah, if he's back with the team, we'll see if I don't like that one. I'm not. I mean, I'd rather go put some money on a team like Denver or Pittsburgh that has a chance to get Aaron Rodgers, and they do have a better overall team. Not saying, I mean, they're not better than. How do I want to word this? With an Aaron Rodgers, both of those teams are better. I mean, you got a dominant defense in both of them, in Denver and Pittsburgh, and both of them have weapons too. I mean, Juju's a free agent in Pittsburgh, but the Broncos they re-signed. They extended their wide receivers. They extended Sutton. They extended Tim Patrick. Judy's still on his rookie contract. Javonte Williams is still on his rookie contract. Noah Fant still on his rookie contract. So if they could get a quarterback, I mean, it doesn't even have to be Aaron Rodgers, but if they could get a quarterback at plus 2,200, they still got a solid defense. I know they shipped off Von Miller last year around the trade deadline to the Rams. But overall, I mean, they're that defense knows how to play the offense. I mean, they really are just a quarterback away. That's one of the teams that you could say is a quarterback away. So plus 2,200 for the Broncos, which I mean that's top 10 as far as or top 12 as far as odds go. So I mean, like even the odds makers are thinking Denver's potentially going to be doing something. Might not be Rodgers, might not be a high end draft pick, even though there's not a lot of good ones in this draft, anyways. But they're thinking that the Broncos are going to go out there and do something, get the quarterback, fill in a couple other needs. They do have about, I forgot what the cap space was. I think it was close to like 40 million, 50 million in cap space that they could definitely make the moves that they need to make to to turn that team around. Couple other ones. I mean, you got the Patriots who are plus 2,500. They were a playoff team with a rookie quarterback, so I mean, they could always go up. One of my favorite ones overall, and I just love this quarterback, is the Chargers with Justin Herbert. Now they're going to be, again, we're not talking about the West teams today, but they're going to be potentially losing Mike Williams, but they have guys like Josh Palmer and Jalen Guyton that could step in. Keenan Allen is still there. Austin Eckler is still there. Their defense is, I mean, they had a lot of games this year where they let in a lot of points, but overall, the Chargers defense is pretty good. They're always a defense that I tend to target in fantasy. So the Chargers at plus 2,200, they get a couple key pieces there. I mean, they are battling in a division with the Chiefs. They're battling in a division with the Broncos if they end up turning that team around, and then the Raiders, who are also a playoff team this year. But I think Justin Herbert could be outside of who I want it to be, Josh Allen. I think Justin Herbert could be the next young quarterback to take his team to the Super Bowl and potentially win it. So plus 2,200, I love that one. Um, Obviously, you could get in there and do the conference winners, division winners. You could do a parlay if you want to. If you want to parlay all the separate division winners, do an eight leg parlay for the division winners. Uh, and then they got it's called winner specials. You could choose which division is going to win the Super Bowl, and they're all in the plus right now. But like NFC West is at plus 380, AFC West plus 380, because they got a couple teams in those divisions that have better chances than somebody like the AFC South who's plus 1,000. You're looking at like the Rams or the 49ers or the Chiefs or the Chargers. That's what's putting those teams at plus 380. So this is all on DraftKings for futures right now. Like I said, they don't have anything for the draft just yet. They don't have anything outside of those, like MVP or anything like that. But they do. You could bet on the Super Bowl winner, conference winner, division winners all right now, and I gave you a couple that I like right now. The worst odds right now for the Super Bowl is the Texans, the Jets, and the Lions, which kind of just makes sense. None of those teams are just going to turn it around just like that. Although the Bengals kind of just did that, so I mean, you never know. They go out and get their own Joe Burrow, and show up those defenses and make a Cinderella run to the Super Bowl. Throw some money on the Lions to win, and that's a pretty hefty payout right there. All right, so I think that is enough for the betting part of it. Now I know, like I said, I know the show is called Bet on It, but we want to take the next couple weeks. So there's five of our episodes, so about 10 weeks, but five of our episodes because we do every other week to talk about like team needs. And because there's 5, 8 divisions, we broke it down into 2 divisions per episode. So it's going to take us to the next 4 episodes that we do is we're going to do 2 divisions for the next 4 episodes. And then on that 5th episode that we have right before, like the week before, our 5th episode is going to be the Friday before the draft starts, which is the following Thursday. We're gonna do like a little first round mock draft. Basically, free agency is gonna be within that time frame, and then other roster moves, trades, and stuff like that might be within that time frame. So we're gonna take everything that we talk about over the next 4 weeks, and they kind of just do a final first round mock for that last episode, and see like if what we talk about today or our next episode matches up with what we kind of finally come up with a consensus at the 5th week. So starting with today, we're doing the East division. So the AFC East and the NFC East. That's your Jets, Bills, Dolphins, Patriots, Cowboys, Commanders, Eagles, and Giants. And I'm kind of not jump around, but it's going to go back and forth between the 2 divisions because I'm going to do it in order of how they're drafting. So, like the Jets of the 8 teams are drafting first, and then the Giants are drafting next. So I'm going to go Jets, Giants. I think Washington is next, and then kind of just work the way down until we get to the last team, which in this case is Miami via trade. They picked 29th out of the 4 or out of the 8 teams. Um, so what I'm going to do is kind of go over what each team needs, their biggest free agents that they have, and then one guy per draft spot that I think we could see at that draft spot. So I'm not throwing in trades. I'm not going through their whole draft. I'm just going through the first round. So like the Eagles have 3 first rounders, I'll give you 3 names. The Jets, I believe, have 2 first rounders. I'm going to give you 2 names, and then everybody else just has 1, which is good because Miami they traded they traded their original pick away, but they ended up getting 1 back. So we do have a pick. We do have at least 1 pick for all 8 teams that we're talking about. So the first team is the Jets. Their biggest needs going into this offseason is basically a whole new team. But all jokes aside, their top 5 needs are going to be cornerback, secondary, pass rusher, offensive line, and wide receiver. Like I said, they have 2 picks coming up in this draft. Pick number 4, which is their own, and then pick 10, which they got from Seattle. I think that was the Jamal Adams trade. Some bigger names that they have that are going to be free agents this year. Marcus May, free safety, Jamison Crowder, and Braxton Berrios, both wide receivers. Berrios is a very interesting name too. Um, I think one of them ends up signing back with the Jets. I don't think they're going to sign both. They do have Elijah Moore that they just drafted. They got Corey Davis that they brought in, so they could bring one of them back. I don't know if they're going to bring back 2. Barrios is a name that for the Bills. I don't know if you guys know or see. I'm a Bills fan. His name has been brought up for us too because there's a potential that Cole Beasley could be cut, save some cap space there. So he's a guy that I would definitely like to bring in for us, but. I mean, he'd be fit. He could fit in anywhere. I mean, he worked with guys like Mike White and Zach Wilson last year, and it kind of looked decent. So he's a guy like a Hunter Renfro or a Wes Welker that could go in and just goes to the dirty places on the field and catches the ball. He also does return kicks too, but so he's a name to definitely look at. Maybe they bring him back to help out Zach Wilson some more. Both him and Crowder got some pretty good hands. I think Barrios is more uh, versatile because, like I said, he does return kicks, so he does save that roster spot if you want to use that somewhere else. Um, but like I said, the biggest one is Marcus May. I doubt he comes back unless they throw a ton of money at him. One of the top free safeties in the league. He's 29 years old. He had a big cap hit this year, but that's because of that. I have them actually going with a safety with their first pick. Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame. I have them picking number 4, and then David Ojabo, edge rusher out of Michigan. So taking care of two of those needs with their first 2 picks at pick 4 and pick 10. Kyle Hamilton is one of the top rated safeties in this draft. Um, you don't see really a safety going in the top 10 or top half of the draft too often, but Kyle Hamilton is one of those guys that could come in, step in, and play right away. He could replace that Marcus May role there. He kind of replaced the Jamal Adams role that they had when they had him. I mean, they need help on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, but I think we're more likely to see them kind of go more defensive heavy, especially with Robert Saleh as the coach. So getting a guy like Hamilton and then Ojabo, the edge rusher out of Michigan, be 2 pretty good picks for them. And like I said, we'll revisit this in 5 episodes to see where we feel then and if any trades have happened or what they do in free agency. But Kyle Hamilton, David Ojabo. And the next team that we have here is going to be the Giants. They pick 5th and then they pick 7th. Let me go bring up their free agents. Hang on one second. So the Giants, they made some big splashes last year, especially on the offensive side of the ball, with bringing in Kenny Galladay, who didn't do much. They drafted Kadarius Toney, who also didn't do much. The coach, I mean, they got Brian Dable. They new coach Brian Dable, former offense coordinator for the Bills. He's an offensive mind, but there is there's definitely some thought that they're probably going to go more offensive side of the ball in this one because just to kind of, obviously Dable, he worked with Josh Allen, he worked with Stephon Diggs, but that's a specialty. So you're probably looking at the Giants going not drafting offensive, but like trying to build that offense up, trying to build around Daniel Jones. He doesn't have, he's for his he was drafted in what 28 no 2019. He's in Kyler's draft. Um, so he's already 3 years in, and he's not really looking like that top top 10, top 15 pick that he was drafted at. So um, I think they're going to give him another chance. I think Dable's going to work with him. I think that was part of the reason why he took the job. It's because he wants to work with Daniel Jones. But the time's ticking on him. So their biggest needs are, well, not biggest needs, but they're a couple of top free agents that they got: Jabril Peppers, Evan Ingram, Nate Salter, Will Hernandez. So they got some big names that are on the offensive line there. Danny Shelton, big defensive tackle. So, and then that's pretty much it for like the bigger names. Mike Glennon, but they're if they need to re-sign him for cheap, they could definitely do that, or they could find a better free agent quarterback. Their biggest needs that they got are, according to this website that I got the needs from, quarterback is number 1. I don't think they're going to go quarterback at 5 or 7, especially with Daniel Jones there. I think they're going to try to go another year with Daniel Jones, maybe pick a mid-round guy to back up and maybe learn, but I don't think they're going quarterback that early. Edge rusher, offensive line, linebacker, and tight end. Like I said, Evan Ingram is a free agent. He's been kind of underwhelming too. Had a good rookie year, but since then hasn't really been too great. a lot of drop balls, some injury history there. So I think they move on from him. I don't think they're going to bring him back. But with their 2 picks in the first round at 5, I got him taking Evan Neal, offensive tackle. We'll just say offensive line because he's listed as a tackle out of Alabama, but he's played all over the offensive line. He does have some guard experience too. So even though they took Andrew Thomas not last year, the year before, or maybe what was last year? I forgot what year he was. But offensive tackle, they took Andrew Thomas. I think they still go with another offensive tackle, offensive lineman in the first round. They got to protect Daniel Jones. That's the biggest thing. They don't really. I mean, you're not taking a running back at 5, but as far as on offense, they put a lot of money and stock into the wide receivers last year. So unless they go on the defensive side of the ball with that 5th pick, I think they're going to go on offensive line because there's really no other place on the offensive side that they can go with that pick. And then 2 picks later, at pick 7, Devin Lloyd, linebacker out of Utah. That's where I got him going defense. Like I said, not too much to go on offense. The offense isn't great, but I don't think they're going to put a lot of stock into going like high and early offensive picks. Um, they're going to be scattered throughout the whole draft, but they need to work on that defense too. Devin Lloyd, the linebacker out of Utah, at pick 7 for the Giants. Believe the next team is the Washington Commanders, but let me just double check here. Yep, they pick at pick 11 here. So, and that's another thing that happened since our last show. The Washington football team got themselves a name. They're the Washington Commanders now. So a couple free agents that they have. Coming up, they got big one, Brandon Sheriff, their guard. J.D. McKissick, who missed some time this year with injury. Their backup running back to Antonio Gibson. Ryan Fitzpatrick, who was supposed to be their starter this year, ended up getting hurt in week 1. Um, Adam Humphries, I mean, he wasn't real big. Ricky Seals Jones, that's probably a bigger one there, but they do have Logan Thomas. So Ricky Seals Jones, he stepped in when Logan Thomas was out with injury. And then a bunch of bench guys. But they do, and John Bostic too, inside linebacker. But I mean, even though they don't have a lot of free agents, they definitely have a lot of needs. Their biggest needs are quarterback. Right now, they currently have Heineke and some backups. But even though Heineke is also backup, offensive line, cornerback, wide receiver, and linebacker. As important as wide receiver is, they got to go quarterback. I got them picking the. I didn't do a full mock draft yet, so between picks 1 through 10, I don't think this is my first quarterback off the board, but I got them if he's there going Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh, quarterback out of Pittsburgh. I think they take their quarterback here. I think they take him early. I mean, there's some decent offensive linemen that are going to be around that range. Corners. I mean, this is a pretty heavy cornerback draft too, as well as wide receivers. And I think they could wait on wide receiver. But I think they just go out and get quarterback of the future. Kenny Pickett is the most pro-ready quarterback that's in this draft right now. I know a lot of people like Malik Willis, and then there's a couple other guys that are starting to put their name out there. But I believe Pickett is the most ready to go. He could step into that offense, and hopefully they could protect him. But when you got weapons like Gibson, you got weapons like Curtis Samuel. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Terry McLaurin. You got to get a guy that can get them the ball, and Pickett seems to be the best guy in this year's draft for that. And that's at pick 11 to the Washington Commanders. The next team that we have here. Shoot. So Washington is you got Philly coming up for a couple picks here. And they have 3 picks in this draft, so we're going to talk a little bit about them here. So Philly, they're another one of those teams that they are not they, but like people in the industry are kind of uncertain what's going on with Jalen Hurts. He's under contract, so I mean, it's not like they're just gonna. I mean, they could replace him, but it's not like he's just gonna walk. Um, and he's had some up and down games. they Miles Sanders has been kind of underwhelming this year. Their running game. I mean, they're one of the top running teams, but Jalen Hurts has a lot to do with it. But I mean, that's all good for fantasy, and that's mostly what this page, this website, and Twitter and everything. That's what they talk about. But as a real life quarterback and real life team, Hurts he's been kind of underwhelming. They don't have a lot of bigger names that are going to be free agents. Derek Barnett is one. Ryan Kerrigan is one. Anthony Harris, the free safety. Greg Ward, wide receiver. But I mean, we probably heard his name because of their lack of wide receivers. But that's really about it as far as like their free agents. So they do have some needs. I mean, they got a lot of needs, but they don't have a lot of their own guys that they need to re-sign. Their biggest needs are safety, cornerback, linebacker, wide receiver, and defensive end. It's crazy to say wide receiver. Just it sucks that they haven't really been good on the wide receiver draft of things because outside of Devonta Smith, who I think is going to be really good, but they wasting a pick on JJ Arcega-Whiteside, who was a couple of picks before DK Metcalf, wasting a pick on not wasting. He started to come on towards the end of the year, but Jalen Rager um, when they got Justin Jefferson right after. So it sucks to say wide receiver, but unfortunately, that's the truth. That you got to get Jalen Hurts some help. For them, they pick 15th, 16th, and 19th. They got their pick 15 was from Miami, 16 was from Indy, and then 19th was their own. So I got him going. Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher out of Florida State. Kind of getting maybe replacing Derek Barnett, letting him go. Older vet there, bringing in the young guy Jermaine Johnson. Andrew Booth, cornerback out of Clemson. Uh, Good cornerback to play on the other side of Darius Slay. And then Drake London, who's one of my personal favorites, the wide receiver out of USC. Seems like they got a lot of smaller wide receivers between Jalen Rager and Devonta Smith. They need a big body. I mean, both those guys can stretch the field. Uh, Jalen or yeah, Jalen Rager needs some stickum on his hands, but Drake London, they need a big body end zone wide receiver guy. Drake London is that guy. He's 6'5". Like I said, one of my favorites coming out of this draft. Absolutely love his size. I mean, I'd be happy if he goes to Philly. I enjoy watching Philly. Give Jalen Hurts a nice big body for the end zone. Um, on top of Dallas Goddard out there, and then Devonta Smith stretching the field. Nice weapon for Hurts there. So Jermaine Johnson, Andrew Booth, and Drake London. Next team we got here. So we did Philly. Is going to be New England. New England, Buffalo, Dallas, and Miami. Oh, no. New England, Dallas, Buffalo, Miami. All right. And sorry about all the dead space to it. It is tough by myself. So if I had Jordan here helping me out, could definitely fill in that dead space. So New England, they pick at 21. They got one of the biggest names entering free agency unless they sign him. That's J.C. Jackson, one of the top corners in the league. Yeah, I imagine he's going to get some top cornerback money. I mean, as a Bills fan, I hope he doesn't re-sign with New England. I would love to have him in Buffalo, but I don't think we could afford him. But I hope he goes somewhere else just so they lose him. Trenton Brown, the right tackle, is potentially a free agent if they don't re-sign him. Devin McCourty, Donta Hightower, Brandon Bolden, who we saw have a lot of snaps last year in that three-headed monster offense with Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. I thought I saw, yeah, I did see James White, who missed all of last year. So I'd imagine they bring one of those guys back. I mean, they kind of both do the same thing. James White was injured. He got injured early. I don't even think he played a snap. I think he got injured in preseason. But I imagine they bring one of those two guys back. Um, Most likely James White. He's definitely the better of the two, pass catching back, and he could just kind of do everything. But Brandon Bolden, he showed that he could be pretty reliable too out of the backfield. So I think one of those guys are going to be back. I don't have them taking a running back anyways, because they do have Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. But it is interesting to see if one of those two, James White and Brandon Bolden, hit the market. They could definitely be. I think they're going to sign on somewhere else and be pretty effective. Um, as a third down pass catching back. But J.C. Jackson is the big one. And with that being said, cornerback is one of their top needs too. But overall, their top needs are corner, tackle, linebacker, defensive tackle, and wide receiver. And wide receiver is listed last, but at their first pick, I have them going with a wide receiver at 21. I know history isn't on their side with picking wide receivers in the first round. Cough, cough, Nikhil Harry, but I mean, you invested a 15th overall pick in Mac Jones last year. Your offensive line is pretty good. You got a defensive genius as a head coach who's going to get the right guys in there on the defensive side. Their defense was pretty decent this past year too. So I think they go and pick a wide receiver at pick 21, and they get your franchise quarterback a weapon that is going to be my personal favorite weapon out of this whole draft, and that's Treylin Burks. I think he can last till then. Wide receiver out of Arkansas. I mean, wherever he goes, I'm going to be a fan. I just love watching him play. So hopefully it's not New England, but I think that he could definitely step into this offense day one, week one, and just be a stud. We saw Justin Jefferson kind of take the league by storm his rookie year, and then last year, this past year, we saw Jamar Chase take the league by storm. I think Traylon Burks can be that guy. With Mac Jones, I don't know, but I think he definitely has that talent to be a top end wide receiver. And they had Kendrick Bourne, who was pretty decent. They signed the two tight ends. Um, Hunter Henry and I can't remember the other one from Tennessee, and then they had Nelson Aguilar too. But I think that I think they got to get a more dominant, dynamic wide receiver, and Traylon Burks is that guy. Um, I like I said, I'd be pretty excited to watch him play wherever he goes, and if he ends up in our division, I get to see him twice a year. Um, but Traylon Burks, he's going to be pretty good, and I got him going to the Patriots at 21. The next team was Dallas. They picked 24. Yes. So Dallas, just off the top of my head, I know one of their free agents is going to be Michael Gallup. He's going to command some decent money too. I think he could go somewhere and start. But their top free agents that they potentially could bring back: Cedric Wilson, the other wide receiver, Michael Gallup, I already said, Randy Gregory, outside linebacker, Dalton Schultz, their tight end. I think they're bringing him back too. Um, Leighton Vander Esch, Keanu Neal. They got some big ones here. Connor Williams, the guard, but Michael Gallup is that biggest one. Overall, I mean, they got a ton of free agents that they're not going to be able to afford them all. I don't think they might bring Wilson back. He'll definitely be a little bit cheaper, but I don't think they bring both Gallup and Wilson back. I think Gallup leaves for greener pastures. They still have Amari Cooper. They got CeeDee Lamb, so it'll be interesting to see what they do as far as their wide receivers go. They're pretty set, even if they don't bring any of them back. Dalton Schultz is probably the biggest one. Like I imagine Gallup isn't going to be there, so that's why I don't think like he's probably the bigger name of all of them. But Dalton Schultz is probably more important to the team than Gallup is. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring him back, because wherever Dalton Schultz goes, he's only 25 years old. He's going to be a stud anywhere. They got him and Blake Jarwin, and Dalton Schultz is the better of the two. I think they definitely need to resign him, bring him back. Um, their biggest needs are lost him. Free safety, defensive tackle, linebacker, especially they lose Leighton Vander Esch, edge rusher, and offensive line. So, I mean, Dallas for years have been known as one of the top offensive lines in the league. Last year was little down. We saw it with the play of Zeke, even though Pollard came in and was pretty successful. But with their first pick at 24th overall, Daxton Hill, safety out of Michigan, we saw um, we saw Trayvon Diggs kind of take the league by storm last year with all those interceptions. And I mean, their defense has been, and part of the reason why, like, we really didn't like why their offense has been. The thing is, like, their offense hasn't been underwhelming, but like why people think that the offense have been underwhelming is because the defense was just so good. They got a lot of points from their defense, but I think that they go. I think they stay on the defensive side. Again, they do have some offensive holes, but they're not going to replace, especially at 24th overall. They're not going to replace Zeke. They're not gonna add to Lamb and Gallup. They could go with an offensive lineman, which is another option. And then they're not gonna replace Dax. So I think they're going on the defensive side, and right around that 24th pick, Daxton Hill out of Michigan seems like the way to go. Pair him with Diggs back there and have a pretty decent secondary. So Daxton Hill, safety out of Michigan. The next team we got is the Bills, picking 25th overall. They got few few most of their free agents are on the defensive side of the ball too, outside of Emmanuel Sanders. But they got Jerry Hughes, who's getting up there in age, the edge rusher. Levi Wallace, who's one that a lot of Bills fans want to bring back. Harrison Phillips, big defensive tackle in the middle there. Another edge rusher, Mario Addison. It's tough to think that they're going to bring any of the edge rushers back because over the past 2 years they drafted two or three edge rushers early. AJ Epinesa, Basham, and Greg Rousseau. So I don't think they're. I mean, they might bring them back if they decide to come back for a little cheaper. But I imagine they're gonna get the younger guys in there and move on from guys like Hughes and Addison. Um, Outside of them, like I said, Emmanuel Sanders is the biggest name on offense. That's a free agent. Mitch Trubisky, learning under Josh Allen and playing or playing for Dable. I mean, he's another name that could potentially go to the Giants, but I know he wants to start somewhere. But obviously, with Allen, their quarterback really isn't a need. Just, I mean, backup is a need, but I'm not gonna worry too much about a backup quarterback. Their free agents or their biggest needs are cornerback. Kind of saw that after Trey White went down with an ACL injury, and since his ACL injury was kind of late in the year, um, who knows when he'll be ready. Guard, they definitely need offensive line. Running back, even though I don't think so. Wide receiver and defensive tackle. Uh, my biggest need out of all of them probably would be cornerback and defensive tackle. At 25th overall, I got them taking the defensive tackle, Jordan Davis out of Georgia, big defensive lineman out of Georgia. I love that pick. And there's another guy out of think it was UConn. I forgot what his name was. That if they don't go with Jordan Davis in the first round, the guy at UConn would be the pick in the second round. But if Jordan Davis is there at 25th, because there's a lot of teams that need defensive tackles, so there's a chance that he's not. Jordan Davis is there at 25th. I'm all over that. McDermott has a history of picking first round defensive players. That's his background too. He was a defensive coordinator on the defensive side of the ball in Carolina, or all throughout his career, actually, not just Carolina. Um, and the offense is pretty solid. I don't see them taking a running back in the first round. We saw Singletary the last 6 games of the year, including the playoffs. He kind of turned it around. So I don't think they need to draft a running back that high. I mean, I'm sure they're going to bring in some help, but they don't need to take one of the top running backs in this draft to kind of replace them. They just need to add to him. Corner, like I said, corner's another one. That I could see them going. And offensive line, they could definitely get throughout the middle rounds. So that's where I'm going. Like I said, Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle out of Georgia. Two more teams here, or was it one more team? No, it's just one. It's the Dolphins. So the Dolphins, they got trade from. Hang on one second. Dolphins got a trade from San Francisco. That was what was that trade? Was that the move up to get Lance? It might have been. I don't. It might have been to move up to get Lance last year. So the Dolphins picked 29th. They're the latest picking team out of the 8 teams that we talked about. A couple of their big free agents here: Emmanuel Agba, the edge rusher; Mike Gesicki, heard his name being thrown around. Um, the 1 year trial of Will Fuller, he came in, and I don't know if he's going to be re-signed. Um, Albert Wilson, wide receiver, you saw a little bit of time, especially because they don't have a lot of top end wide receivers. Outside of that, got a pretty big list, but not a lot of not a lot of star players. Probably bring a couple of them back on cheaper contracts, but we'll see what they do in the offseason here. Their biggest needs. Damn it, I clicked an ad. Their biggest needs are offensive tackle. The list also says quarterback. I still believe in Tua, so I don't think they go quarterback. Wide receiver, add in the Jalen Waddle there. Running back, that's probably my favorite one from them, although I don't have them taking a running back in the first round. And off in interior offensive line. So probably could have just combined offensive line all together because they got offensive tackle, then interior offensive line. But overall, just that whole offensive line could be replaced. Running back would be an interesting one. They're picking late enough to where you still get that 5th year option if you go with like a Brees Hall or Isaiah Spiller. I unfortunately have them going boring with Trevor Penning, offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa. That's another one of those you got to protect your quarterback. Tua has been kind of up and down. There's been part of the reason why. I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole Brian Flores stuff, but part of the reason why they kind of let Brian Flores go was because of his displeasure with Tua. So that has me thinking that they're leaning more towards keeping Tua and building around him rather than moving on from him. So they got the wide receiver last year. They could get running backs either via the later on in the draft or free agency. They got to protect him though. They got to stop him from hitting the turf as much as he has. Trevor Penning, offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa, I think is the pick there, or any kind of offensive lineman at that 29th spot. Um, like I said, the wide receiver class is pretty deep in this one, so they don't have to take one there. I I think they're going to grab a wide receiver or two in this draft to pair with Waddle. But I'm thinking that most likely, like if there was a betting prop on it, I would put money that they're going offensive line. Maybe it's not the guy that I mentioned, but I definitely think they're going to go offensive line with that pick. So that is the AFC East and NFC East. Um, and I believe that is everything for today's show. This was actually my first solo show. I've never done a solo show before. Kind of nerve-wracking. I hope I did well for you guys. Outside of that, hopefully Jordan is all situated in his new house when we're back on in 2 weeks, and then that way I'm not as nervous. And that's it. I appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. We are going to be doing the AFC and NFC West next time, so that's in 2 weeks. Um, 2 Fridays from now, AFC West and NFC West. Thank you guys for listening.